Good morning and welcome to the Now Morning Show, where we were just talking science fiction and now we're going outer space. At least vicariously through our next guest, who has decided that apparently this stratosphere is just not enough. We say good morning and welcome to Mr. Paterson, Mr. Kaylon Paterson, who is getting ready to be the fourth Trinbagonian to fly out of space. Good morning and welcome to the Now Morning Show.
Good morning, thank you. Hi, can you hear me?
It is quite the feat to decide to take on a whole different solar system. So I'm first curious as to what inspired you on this quest, beyond being the CEO, of course, of Paterson Aerospace Systems Incorporated rather. We want to know what was the inspiration and the motivation to decide to go outer space.
So when I was in secondary school, I was very fascinated by difficult questions, and I was torn between biology and physics. Then when I was studying for CXC, actually, I spent a lot of time in the National Library in Port of Spain, and I started reading a lot of the physics books that were there and just got so fascinated by the possibilities and the unanswered questions regarding like aerospace engineering and those things. And so that was really the initial motivation that got me here.
Now, aerospace actually covers both, yes, space travel, but also aircrafts and aircraft creation altogether. You really chose to go the more less explored of the two then, very deliberately, yes?
Yes,
now,
definitely.
Go ahead. Go right ahead.
I was going to say I had the option several times along the way, but I decided that there was a bigger future for me in the space industry, so I focused my energies on that.
Right. Now, that would have also led to the development of the Aerospace Systems Corporation that you own and are the CEO of, and therein created the opportunities to connect with other entities like the Institute's Horizons Zero Gravity Flying Program. Tell me a little bit about how the two are related, just so that we can connect the dots for persons who aren't familiar.
Sure. So there's no direct affiliation between the organizations. There was an opening for a research project to be flown with Aurelia Institute on their zero-G flight. And they opened it up to several folks across the world, actually. And we pitched our idea because we were getting up to a phase in our development that we required some prototyping and some testing. And so we pitched it, we got in, we did pretty well in the initial preparations, got to get reviewed by an astronaut, Katie Coleman, and, you know, continuing on to now, we had a few setbacks in terms of timeline for the actual test, but, you know, we're going to be flying on Friday, so it's a good thing.
It's a good thing, he says. Like it's a regular trip to the grocery. Sure. Now, the preparation towards that end, because we're talking about this week, making that incredible journey and being the fourth Trinidadian to do so. Tell me a little bit as to the training process or the training leading up to the actual trip, and perhaps how that might have been impacted in any way by your Trinbagonian tendencies.
Definitely. Well, obviously, there's a lot of research and science that goes into it. So, you know, my passion for this started from back home in Trinidad, and pushed me to this point. But also, the entire idea of the project that we're flying, as well as what my company does, is it's focused on environmental sustainability in the space industry. And so that came from a longstanding idea in my head from growing up in Trinidad that, you know, as a small island nation, we don't get a lot of the resources that a lot of the rest of the world gets to, you know, to take care of our ecosystem locally. So how could we fix that on the global scale? Well, we probably have to encourage other nations to do a better job so that we don't have to stress about, you know, not having our beaches anymore, and having way too many floods, as we've been seeing in the news a lot in the last few years in Trinidad. So that was a large part of you know, the connection for me.
No, I'm glad that you spoke about relatively Well, dear to home topics, really and truly. When we talk climate change, we talk about the heat we're experiencing. You're not home to experience it, but we're talking about all of those things. How does your flight into zero gravity translate towards that end? Using the same resources that you will need to explore space, are we looking forward to inhabiting new spaces? How does this help with that journey?
Definitely. There's a lot of conversation in the space industry right now about how we can get humanity back to the moon, even getting us to Mars. There's a lot of budget changes that are probably going to focus us on the moon again. But in the overall theme, there's this idea that space is a global concern. It belongs to all of us. There's no one nation that runs outer space, right? So the principles behind what we're doing is really about how we can treat the space environment better and also make sure that everybody has a say in what goes on in aerospace research so that we can make sure that future generations have access to it, and indeed even Trinidadians like myself could become aerospace engineers, maybe even astronauts one day.
I'm glad that you're charting the course, but you did mention resources and having a say, and that means that some of the resources you rely on would be your team. Tell me a little bit about your team of persons that are helping you to make this happen.
Definitely. Well, there's a good moment to shout out some of my team members. Kurt Whitaker, who is currently in Trinidad, a really brilliant software engineer and IT person. He has been very fundamental in the starting of our company and really figuring out how we can do this thing right. Technology-wise, software-wise. I also have folks in Hawaii like David Darby, who has really been fundamental in getting our electronics systems together for this flight, as well as a good friend of mine and a former coworker, Joe Kelling, who also had a lot to do with the initial ideas and concepts that came together for this.
Okay, Kaylon, you're going to be doing this, time-wise, is there a difference for time zones or localities? Give us the specifics. And is there a way that we can vicariously live through you and do this with you?
Yeah, so for a few months out of the year, I'm an hour, I think, ahead of you. No, I think I'm an hour behind Trinidad. And then I also have, so in Hawaii, that's 8 hours ahead of me. So there are definitely some time gaps, but we try to make it work. A lot of what we started was during COVID, and so we already had to be forced to work in this virtual environment. So we just kind of got used to it, and because we're doing a lot of software related work, it was a lot easier to do that. Maybe in the future we'll get the whole team into one place, but we're working on that.
All right. So in that case, we are getting ready to just keep our fingers crossed to make sure everything goes smoothly, and perhaps check in with you thereafter to find out next steps. But any plans in advance as to perhaps another journey out into space or anything of the sort?
Yeah, so a quick clarification. We're not going to space, we're flying in microgravity, but the idea is, yes, I would love for our technology to fly into space, and I have applied to be an astronaut several times already. It's a very difficult process. No one ever gets it on their first try, so we'll continue to push forward. I think I'm young enough to give it a few more goes. Yeah.
In that case, best of luck. Thank you very much for joining us. And yes, you are not going out of space, but it's a step towards that end. And we hope you do that and so much more. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Paterson.
Thank you.
Best of luck as he gets